This video is going to cover the installation of a Barnett heavy-duty clutch in a Yamaha YXZ 1000R. I'll be doing the clutch plates and their 6-spring pressure plate conversion. Lots of talk on the forum of driver error, the parts suck, Yamaha didn't bulletproof it. Man, in my mind the debate's as useless as what's better, a stew sand tire or a scat track. Just for the record, I have 2 sets of scats sitting right here. But it's pointless. My machine has 0 issues as far as the clutch goes, 300 miles on it. I'm putting this upgrade kit in just as a preventative measure. I'll be doing a turbo down the road, and you know, the extra pressure on the plates certainly won't hurt it. So anyway, I got my Venom and Monsters for the afternoon, Venoms for the morning. So we'll get started. Okay, first thing we have to do is drain the transmission oil. So this is the passenger side. I've already taken a lot of the covers off. I've actually got additional covers off because I was doing some other stuff. You should only have to take off the passenger side and driver's side transmission tunnels, the side plastics. But on the passenger side, when you pull that tunnel off, down in here, there it is right there, is the dipstick where you actually check the transmission level and stuff. So we'll pull that out, unscrew that, and then we'll move on to draining the oil. Okay, the drain plug underneath the machine, right here. You'll have your skid plate on here. I've already taken mine off, just because when it comes to actually filming the removal of the clutch plates and all that, it'll be easier to film it. But there's a nice hole in the skid plate. It's very obvious where you'll drain it from. This is a 12 millimeter right here. Okay, before we get too carried away, and mostly so I can get the drain pan out of the way, put the drain plug back in. Make sure that the gasket is still on the bolt. It's a 12 millimeter socket, and it torques down to 14 foot-pounds. Which is not much, but that's what it calls for. Okay, I've got all the oil drained, so now we're going to pull the clutch cover off. I know it's kind of a weird angle, but for orientation's sake, this is the rear of the machine. We're looking at it from the back forward. This is the output shaft going to the rear differential. This is the clutch cover. There are, if I counted correctly, 12 of these small bolts. They use an 8 millimeter socket to be removed. So we'll go through and we'll take all of those off. The other thing I'm going to be really careful of when I actually go to remove the clutch cover is to try to save the gasket. They didn't have this gasket in stock. It wasn't in the warehouse. It was back ordered, blah, blah, blah. Typical problems with the new machine. So if I can get it off in one piece, that's awesome. If not, I'll put some RTV on it to make up for it. Anyway, next process is pull all the bolts out of the clutch cover and pull the clutch cover off. No luck getting the cover off without destroying the gasket. I lost, it looks like it's just a real thin paper gasket, some there and there and there and big piece there, so I'll scrape all this off and just do an RTV silicone gasket. One thing I noted when I was pulling the bolts out, it's pretty cool, all the bolts are the same length, so you don't have to worry about what bolt goes where, but 3 of them have a copper washer on them, like a gasket on them. And there is, this would be the orientation of the clutch cover sitting on the machine. See it? Okay, clutch cover as it sits on the machine, more or less like this. There are 3 arrows or triangles here, here, and here, pointing to 3 holes. Those are the 3 holes that the bolts of the gaskets came out of, so they'll go back in those holes. Okay, now that the clutch cover is off, we can get to the pressure plate. 6 bolts. These are a 10 millimeter socket. And when I said you don't need to pull the skid plate off to do this, probably don't technically have to, but I know getting all the bolts out of the clutch cover, it certainly made it a lot easier, so it's probably worth doing. Okay, gets the pressure plate out of the way. Now I'm going to start fishing out all the actual clutch plates. Trying to be careful, or not trying, but actually being careful as to keeping them in order as the way they come out, so that I can put the new ones back in the same order. At the end of the day, if you flat screw up and you get them mixed up, you can always go to go to the parts manual and get the order of them there. All right, I'll finish this up and then we'll look at the new parts. When you get through the first like 7.5 plates, it's like 7 metal plates, steel plates, and like 8 friction plates. There's a thing called a ring set in here, which is just looks like it's just a spring or a wire that runs around that seats the plates. So you'll have to dig that out. Working on that ring set, I finally ended up just ended up breaking on me. It really looks like it's nothing more than just a wire to, I guess, seat the rings. Actually, I guess it didn't break. I guess it came apart. I'll find out if that needs to go back in, or I don't think that it does, but we'll find out. Anyway, we can continue on with pulling out the rest of the clutch plates now. Okay, now that I've got everything apart, we can get into what comes in the kit that I bought from Alba. It's Barnett clutches. They made it. I bought the kit from Alba though. You get the clutch pack, and the sticker. Propaganda from Alba. Alright, Alba's going right next to the tribal whips Martian. Bam! This is Barnett's pressure plate replacement, and a couple of quarts of oil for the transmission, some paperwork, some useless paperwork, no instructions. Wonderful. Alright, here's all the parts laid out, old and new. The new clutch pack, old clutch pack, new pressure plate, old pressure plate. A couple of things here. There's two different friction ring sizes. There is, if you'll notice, one's got a bigger inner diameter. There's three of those. They go towards the inside of the clutch pack, and the reason those are there is because it has judder springs, and they go actually inside the friction plates. So the new clutch pack is just friction plates and steel plates. I talked to both Barnett, which makes the pack, and Alba for what they think. Barnett said put it all back the way it came out. Basically use the judder springs. But they also said you don't have to. Alba says take all the old shit out, put all the new shit in. I'm going to go with all old shit out, all new shit in. I'm not going to put the judder springs back in. The other thing, this is that, they call it the parts manual calls it a spring retainer, I think, or spring clip. Anyway, what it is it's a wire. The last three springs, the last three plates include the judder springs. So my logic is that you put all these in, and then they use this retainer basically, they wrap it around the clutch, and that's what actually holds all the judder springs in place, so that, you know, they don't, for whatever reason, slip out and get in behind one of the clutch plates when you're putting it all together. Put them all in there, wrap the wire around it, it holds all it in there, and then you can put the rest of the plates in there. Both Barnett and Alba said shit can it. Barnett said some guys put it back in, some guys don't. I'm not fucking with it. It looks like it's a pain in the ass. So that's that. Here's the old pressure plate. It's a diaphragm style. New pressure plate, coil spring style. So now all we got to do is get the friction plates, get those pre-lubricated, and then start slapping it all back together. Okay, one thing you have to do is you're supposed to lubricate the friction plates before you put them back in. I'm just using of course, the oil that's going to go in the transmission. I tried to use the Barnett bag that the clutches came in, but it had a freaking hole in it at the bottom, so it leaked. And I didn't have any Ziploc bags, so I'm using a plate. The paperwork that came with the Barnett clutch has soak them for 1 to 3 minutes. I'll soak them for a couple of minutes, 2 or 3 minutes a piece, and then I'll stack them all in there. Okay, I've had my friction plate soaking for a couple of minutes. The first plate that goes in is a friction plate, and it's going to be the one with the bigger inner diameter. Maybe not. Definitely helps if you get it in the right hole. I'm old, so it becomes an issue. Alright, friction plate, pain in the ass. Next thing to go in is a steel plate. All the steel plates are the same. This is the point where you'd be putting in the judder springs in between the friction and the steel plate, if you're going to put them back in. This will be a lot easier to do when I'm not trying to jack with a camera and I can use two hands. Okay, friction plate, steel plate. And then I'll put the last bigger inner diameter friction plate in. And the last steel plate. So now we're at the point where if you know, we're going to put the judder springs back in and that wire retainer, it would go in at the wire retainer would go in at this point. All right, I'm going to finish putting all the rest of the plate stack in, and then we'll move on to the clutch, the pressure plate. Now that we've got all the clutch plates in, the next thing we're going to deal with is the pressure plate. So this is the Barnett pressure plate. A little different from the OEM, which was a diaphragm style. This is a coil spring style. Put the spring on, so plate goes on. I'll put it down here where you can see it. Pressure plate goes on, then it's got a coil spring, and then it's got a retainer, and then it's got a bolt. It uses a number 5 metric hex. And is apparently not going to be the easiest thing in the world to get started. Okay, so I will continue on putting all those on. And these will torque down to 7.5 foot-pounds per Nate from Alba. Okay, I've got my gasket made up. Highly recommend ordering a gasket before you do this. Or, you know, they weren't in stock whenever I looked, but probably worth waiting on one, because the RTV is a pain in the ass. So now I'll run the bolt in there. Remember that the 3 with the triangles on them, those are the ones that get the washers, the little gaskets on them. I'm going to torque these down to 8.5 foot-pounds per Alba, and then we're done. Put all the plastics back on and see how it goes. Okay, that was a pretty simple, straightforward installation. I did it with no instructions. I did make one phone call to Barnett just to ask their thought on putting that wire retainer back in. Alba claims a 30% heavier clutch pedal. I'd say it's more than that. It's noticeably heavier, but you know, if the byproduct is that I don't get stuck in the middle of the dune trip, then whatever. I did it in like 4 hours start to finish. That includes screwing with the camera, getting all that set up, and also includes the soak time on the clutch plates. So yeah, I probably can do it in like 3 hours if you're not messing with all the other stuff. It's now afternoon, noted by the monster. Remember, Venom in the morning, Monster in the afternoon, and Red Bull, that's only for pretentious people. Oh, shit. That didn't work out. This way. God, that fucking shit gets everywhere. Fucking ridiculous. Fuck me running.